She doesn't have money for that. But what the child did silenced the richest man in town. The auction hall fell into absolute silence, not the usual kind of silence. It was that heavy, suffocating silence where 300 people hold their breath at the same time, where the air feels thick, where you can hear your own heartbeat, because something impossible was happening right there, in front of everyone. Richard Vaughan, the man who never bowed to anyone, was on his knees, kneeling on the imported Italian marble floor that had cost over $30,000. His hands were shaking. His face was pale, completely drained of color. And beside him stood his 6-year-old son, the boy doctors once said might never speak in full sentences, holding the hand of a woman wearing worn-out sneakers, a woman he had humiliated, mocked, and publicly destroyed just 3 days earlier. And the boy said, in a soft but clear voice, "Daddy, she fixes the sad paintings." In that moment Richard understood. He understood he had been wrong. He understood he had lost something far greater than money. But to understand how we got here, you have to go back with me. Back 3 days in time, to when it all began. It was Thursday morning. Marina Alcott woke up thinking it would be just another hard day. She had no idea she was about to face both the worst and the best day of her life. Let's start from the beginning. 6:45 in the morning. Her alarm didn't ring, not because she forgot to set it, but because the alarm clock had stopped working 2 months ago, and she didn't have $8 to buy a new one. It doesn't sound like much, right? $8, the price of a cheap lunch, the price of a movie ticket. But for Marina, $8 was the difference between eating during the last week of the month or going hungry. So she woke up every day to the sound of the garbage truck, always at 6:45, as punctual as despair. Marina opened her eyes slowly, staring at the cracked ceiling of her apartment, 2 damp stains in the right corner, a leak her landlord had promised to fix 8 months ago. She took a deep breath, got up, and immediately smelled it. Reheated coffee, dried acrylic paint, and that faint, sour smell of overdue bills. You know that feeling when you see a red envelope on the table and you can almost smell the anxiety? That was the smell. The apartment had 2 small rooms. One served as bedroom, living room, and makeshift art studio. The other was a tiny bathroom where the shower dripped non-stop because the valve was broken. There were no paintings on the walls. Ironic, right? Marina Alcott spent 12 hours a day restoring priceless works of art, but in her own home the walls were bare and empty. She didn't even have money for a picture frame. On a small old Formica table sat a pile of papers. Bills, always bills, electric bill, 2 weeks overdue, speech therapist invoice, 3 weeks overdue, rent notice, overdue. And in the middle of everything, a white sheet of paper with one number circled in red ink. $47,000. That was the number that woke Marina up in the middle of the night. That made her hands shake while she washed dishes. That filled her mind in the middle of conversations until everything else disappeared. $47,000, the cost of her son's ear surgery. Her 6-year-old boy had lost hearing in his left ear, a simple infection, the kind any antibiotic could fix. But the local clinic was out of antibiotics that week. "Come back next week," they said, "but infections don't wait." By the time Marina got the medication, it was too late. Her son's left ear was permanently damaged. Now, at 6 years old, he could only hear half the world, and the only solution was a surgery that cost $47,000. Marina tied her brown hair in a messy bun, looked at the cracked bathroom mirror. 34 years old, deep dark circles, wrinkles that hadn't existed 2 years ago. She put on the same pair of jeans, the one with a rough patch on the left knee, and grabbed her black blazer. The only blazer she owned, frayed sleeves, 2 blue paint stains that wouldn't come out no matter how much she washed it. But it was her important meeting blazer, and today Marina had a very important meeting. She walked into the bedroom. Her son, Peter, was still asleep, hugging his pillow, his blonde hair sticking up in every direction, his cheeks pressed against the fabric, a calm smile on his face. Marina sat on the edge of the bed and gently brushed his hair with her hand. "Peter, wake up, sweetheart." The boy slowly opened his eyes. It always took him 3 extra seconds to focus on her face. Peter was on the autism spectrum, level 2. He spoke little, avoided eye contact, and didn't like noisy places. But he had a gift. Peter could draw with a precision that amazed even his therapists. He could reproduce any image he saw, down to the smallest details, as if his mind were a camera. "Good morning, Mum." His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Good morning, my prince. Mommy has a very important meeting today. I'll leave you with Mrs. Carter, okay?" Peter nodded and immediately grabbed his sketch pad from under the pillow. He never went anywhere without it. It was his comfort object. Marina helped him get dressed, made a simple cheese sandwich. The bread was a little stale, but still fine, and they went downstairs together. Mrs. Carter lived in the apartment below. 72 years old, widowed, with a heart bigger than her pension. She always watched Peter when Marina had to work, and she never charged a dime. "God bless you, sweetheart," Mrs. Carter said, holding Peter's hand. "And remember, keep your head high, you're good at what you do." Marina forced a smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter." But inside, she was terrified. 9:15 in the morning. Marina arrived at the gallery 20 minutes late. The bus had broken down on Madison Avenue, right in the middle of traffic. Everyone had to get off and wait for the next one. She ran 3 blocks in low heels, the only halfway decent shoes she owned, and arrived sweating, breathless, her hair falling out of its bun. The Avant-Garde Gallery was located in Upper East Side, a neighborhood Marina only knew from the bus window. Tree-lined streets, mansions hidden behind tall gates, luxury cars parked like bicycles, and the gallery. The gallery was everything Marina would never be. Tinted glass facade, automatic revolving doors, a doorman in white gloves who gave her that look that said, "Are you sure you belong here?" Marina took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The blast of cold air hit her face like an icy slap, the smell of imported lilies, expensive perfume, and that museum silence where even footsteps echo. The floor was Carrara marble, white with grey veins, polished so perfectly that Marina could see her reflection. From the ceiling hung baccarat crystal chandeliers, each one worth more than the car she never had. And on the walls, art. Marina stopped in the middle of the hall, mesmerized. A genuine Pollock, a Georgia O'Keeffe, a Warhol, pieces she had studied in college, only ever seen in books, and now they were right there a few feet away. But when her eyes landed on the painting at the back, she froze. A massive canvas, vibrant colors, a distorted, almost surreal figure. The iconic American Sunflower, 1928, one of the most important pieces of American modernism. Her heart started to race, but not from excitement, from suspicion. Something was off. "Miss Alcott," the voice came from behind her. Marina turned around. A man in his 50s, wearing a flawless Italian suit and perfectly combed grey hair, smiled at her. But the smile never reached his eyes. "I'm Michael Fisher, the gallery director. Pleasure to meet you." He extended his hand. Marina shook it. His hand was soft, cold, and covered with gold rings. "Sorry for being late. The bus broke down and—" "No problem," Michael interrupted, still smiling that plastic smile. "Let's get straight to the point. I know your time is limited." He didn't say valuable, he said limited, as if her time was worth less than his. "I need you to authenticate that piece." He pointed toward the sunflower painting. "By Friday, 6 p.m. You have 3 days. Marina blinked. 3 days? "Mr. Fisher, a full authentication takes at least 2 weeks. I need lab tests, spectroscopy, carbon dating." "We don't have 2 weeks, Michael said, his tone colder now. "And the painting cannot leave the gallery. The owner is private." "So how am I supposed to—" "You'll have full access to the gallery. You can come as many times as you need, but the piece stays here." Marina looked at the painting. 3 days. Impossible. But she thought of the number, $47,000. "How much?" Michael smiled again. This time the smile showed teeth. $12,000. Half now, half when you deliver the signed report." 12,000. A quarter of the surgery. Not enough. But it was a start. And Marina didn't have the luxury of saying no. "I'll take it." "Excellent." Michael pulled an envelope from his inner jacket pocket and handed it to her. 6,000. The rest on Friday. Marina opened the envelope. 6 crisp $1,000 bills, brand new, smelling like fresh ink. She had never held that much money at once in her life. "You can start right now if you'd like." Michael pointed to a room at the back. "The piece is in the VIP room. Basic equipment is available." Marina nodded and walked toward the room. But as she did, a strange feeling ran up her spine, like she was walking straight into a trap. The VIP room was small but luxurious, walls covered in beige linen, soft, focused lighting, a genuine leather armchair in the corner, and in the center, protected by anti-reflective glass, the painting, the American sunflower. Marina set her bag down, put on the latex gloves she had brought from home, and approached slowly. The painting was impressive, 56 inches tall, a distorted human figure with small head, huge limbs and oversized feet, an orange sun in the background, a dark green cactus in the corner, warm, vivid, almost aggressive colors. But Marina wasn't looking at beauty. She was looking at details. She picked up her magnifier and leaned close to the surface. The first thing she noticed was the texture. The paint had a strange consistency. Too smooth, too even. The original artist worked with layers. She applied paint in fast, impulsive strokes, creating visible reliefs on the surface. But here, everything was flat. Marina frowned. She grabbed a small UV flashlight, one of the few tools she managed to buy last year, and turned it on. Under ultraviolet light, old pigments react differently than modern ones, and what she saw made her throat tighten. The cobalt blue reacted wrong. Authentic cobalt blue from 1928, made with natural compounds, fluoresces greenish. But this one glowed purple. Synthetic blue, probably manufactured after the 1950s. Marina turned off the light, breathing heavily. That couldn't be right. She picked up a cotton swab and gently rubbed the lower edge of the canvas. Just a micro sample. She placed it into a small portable chemical analyzer, a kit she had assembled herself by ordering reagents online. 3 minutes later, the result appeared. Synthetic binder. Modern polymers. The paint wasn't from 1928. Marina sat down in the leather chair, her hands shaking. The piece was fake, completely fake, and she had 3 days to prove it, or worse, 3 days to decide if she would, because if she turned in a report saying the painting was fake, Michael wouldn't pay her the remaining $6,000, and she would lose her only chance to cover the deposit for her son's surgery. Marina closed her eyes. She thought of Peter, his smile, the way he held her hand when he got scared. And then she thought about what it would mean to sign a false report, to lie, to sell her integrity for money. She opened her eyes. No, she wasn't going to do it. At that very moment, the door opened. And Marina heard a voice that would change everything. The voice was deep, metallic, the kind used to giving orders and never hearing the word no. "I don't care what it costs, Michael. If it's for sale, I'm buying it." Marina turned her head. 3 people walked into the room. In front, a man. 42, maybe 43 years old. Charcoal grey suit, perfect cut, fabric shimmering under the light. Tom Ford, probably $5,000. Polished black Oxford shoes that shined like mirrors. Dark brown hair slicked back with imported gel. Square jaw, cold brown eyes, the look of someone who constantly calculates how much everything and everyone is worth. On his left wrist, a Rolex Daytona, steel and gold. At least $25,000. Marina knew because she had once restored a painting in a house where the owner wore the same watch. Behind him, a woman, blonde, straight hair, red-bottom Louboutin heels, a tight white dress, and a Hermes Birkin bag hanging from her arm. She looked around with bored eyes as if she were in a grocery store and not an art gallery, and beside the man, holding his hand tightly, was a boy, 6, maybe 7 years old, light brown hair, big, frightened eyes. He didn't look at anyone. His eyes were fixed on the floor, and he held his father's hand so tight that his fingers turned white. The man entered the room as if it already belonged to him. Michael practically bowed. "Mr. Vaughan, what an unexpected pleasure. I didn't know you'd be coming today." Richard Vaughan. Marina had heard the name before. CEO of a real estate holding group, owner of nearly 30% of the commercial towers in Manhattan, estimated fortune $65 million, and apparently zero patience. I was in the area and decided to stop by. Richard didn't even look at Michael. His eyes were fixed on the painting. "Is that piece part of the charity auction this Saturday?" "Yes, sir. Final lot. Starting bid at about $500,000. "I want to buy it before the auction." Michael hesitated. "Well, Mr. Vaughan, the piece is reserved for the charity event, but I can talk to the owner and I'll offer $550,000. Cash." Michael swallowed hard. I'll talk to him right away." That's when Richard finally noticed Marina, or rather noticed that someone was crouched in front of what he now considered his painting. He frowned. "Who's that?" Michael looked at her as if he had completely forgotten she was there. "Oh, that's the technical consultant, Miss Alcott. She's authenticating the piece." Richard looked her up and down, and Marina felt every second of that look. He saw the worn blazer, the patched jeans, the sneaker with a small hole on the left side, the one she had tried to cover with black marker, but it was still visible. And then he did something worse than yelling. He laughed, a short, sharp, cruel laugh. "Consultant?" Richard turned to Michael. "Wearing those shoes?" Marina felt her face burn, not from anger, from humiliation, that deep, gut-wrenching humiliation that makes you want to disappear. She stood up slowly, taking off her gloves. "I'm authenticating the piece, sir." Richard took 2 steps closer. Now Marina could smell his cologne, Creed Aventus, a $500 bottle, the scent of power, money, distilled arrogance. "Authenticating." He repeated the word as if it were a joke. "Tell me, consultant," he made air quotes with his fingers, "what exactly does someone with holes in their sneakers know about Georgia O'Keeffe?" Marina took a deep breath, counted to 3, and said, "I know this piece is fake." Silence. Absolute silence. The blonde woman's eyes widened. Michael went pale, completely white. "And Richard?" Richard tilted his head slightly, like a predator studying its prey. "Fake?" He smiled. "Do you have any idea where you are? Do you have any idea what this gallery is worth? Or how many experts have already authenticated this piece before you?" Marina didn't back down. "I do. And I also know that the cobalt blue pigment is wrong for 1928. Georgia O'Keeffe used French ultramarine from the Lefranc and Bourgeois brand, imported directly from Paris. The pigment had natural compounds that created a greenish fluorescence under UV light. This one fluoresces purple. It's synthetic, probably made after the 1950s. Richard blinked. For the first time he looked genuinely surprised, but the surprise lasted only 2 seconds. Then came the arrogance again. "You know what your problem is?" He took another step closer. Now he was less than 2 feet away. "People like you always need to prove you're smarter, because deep down," he looked her up and down again, "you know you'll never belong." Marina felt a sharp ache in her chest. "People like me. People who ride the bus," he said coldly. "People who probably can't even pay their own bills, yet think they can have an opinion about $500,000 art." Marina clenched her fists. Her nails dug into her palms. "I don't need money to understand art." "No?" Richard smiled. "Then why are you here? For the love of art? Or because you desperately need $12,000? Marina froze. How did he know? Richard saw the expression on her face and laughed again. "Michael told me. Said you have a son. Autistic, right? Needs surgery." He crossed his arms. "That must be hard. Raising a kid alone. No money. No help." Marina felt her eyes burn with tears. She didn't let the tears fall. She wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. "My son is none of your business." "Of course not," Richard said with a shrug. "But you know what I think. I think you're desperate. I think you need money so badly that you're willing to sabotage a legitimate transaction just to get attention, just to feel important." That's when the boy tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad." Richard looked down, annoyed. "Not now, Theo." "Dad, don't yell." "I'm not yelling." Richard turned back to Marina. "Michael, I want this piece authenticated by a real professional, someone with credentials, someone who doesn't—" He looked at Marina with disdain. "Need money so badly that they're willing to lie." Marina took a deep breath, grabbed her bag, and walked out of the room without saying a word. Because if she stayed 1 second longer, she would cry, and she wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. She crossed the gallery hall, almost running, passed by the receptionist, who looked at her with pity, passed by the doorman and who opened the door without saying a word, and stepped outside. The midday sun hit her face like a slap. Heat, noise, car horns, people rushing by. Marina leaned against the glass wall of the gallery, trying to breathe, but she couldn't. It felt like her chest was being crushed, like someone had reached inside and torn everything out. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the sidewalk, right there on that fancy street in the Upper East Side, sitting on the ground like a beggar. And then the tears came, not the quiet, graceful kind, but the kind that come from somewhere deep, raw, and uncontrollable. Marina cried. She cried from humiliation, from the contempt, from the way Richard Vaughan had looked at her, like she was trash. But most of all, she cried for Peter, because now she had lost the job, lost the remaining $6,000, and lost any chance to pay for the surgery. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Marina wiped her face with the back of her hand and pulled it out. A message from Dr. Reynolds, Peter's speech therapist. "Marina, I managed to schedule Peter's surgery at a partner hospital, but it's for Monday, 4 days from now. We need a down payment of $12,000 by tomorrow, Friday, or we'll lose the spot." Marina read the message once, twice, 3 times. 4 days, $12,000. By tomorrow. She leaned her head against the glass wall and closed her eyes. "I'm not going to make it." She sat there for 10 minutes, maybe 15. She wasn't sure. People walked past her. Some looked at her with pity, others with disgust. An older woman even dropped 2 coins on the ground, thinking Marina was begging. She looked at the coins. 50 cents. She laughed, a bitter, joyless laugh. And then her phone rang. Unknown number. Marina almost didn't answer, but something made her press the green button. "Hello? Miss Marina Alcott." The voice was deep, polite, but firm. "Yes? This is Dr. Henry Whitmore, Chief Curator of the Museum of Modern Art in New York." Marina straightened up instantly. Dr. Henry Whitmore, the leading authority on modern art in the United States, the man who authenticated works for the Met, for major biennials, for collectors around the world, the man who had verified original Pollocks, Warhols, and O'Keeffes. Yes, Dr. Whitmore, how can I help you?" "Actually, I'd like to help you," he said, his voice carrying genuine interest. "I heard you identified a possible forgery at the Avant-Garde Gallery. Is that true?" Marina hesitated. "How did he know?" "Yes. I found inconsistencies in the pigment and in the paint composition." "Interesting." There was a pause. "Miss Alcott, I'll be direct. I've been invited to the charity auction this Saturday, and that painting, the so-called American Sunflower, is the final lot. If you truly believe the work is fake, I need you to attend the event and present your findings publicly." Marina's heart started racing. "Publicly?" "Yes, in front of all the guests, in front of the buyer, and in front of me. If you're right, we'll stop a multi-million-dollar fraud. If you're wrong, well, your reputation ends there." Marina swallowed hard. "And if I'm right?" "If you're right," Dr. Whitmore said, "I personally guarantee you'll never have to worry about finding work again. The museum is always open to competent professionals." Marina closed her eyes. It was all or nothing. Either she proved the painting was fake and saved her career, or she was wrong and destroyed her future in art forever. "I'll go. I'll be there on Saturday." "Excellent. Dr. Whitmore's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Prepare your evidence. And, Miss Alcott, don't let anyone intimidate you. Truth always holds more value than money." He hung up. Marina stared at the phone, her hands trembling. 3 days. 3 days to gather irrefutable proof. 3 days to prepare for the biggest moment of her life. She stood up slowly, wiped her face and began to walk, not toward the bus stop, but back toward the gallery. Because now Marina had a mission. Marina got home at 7 in the evening. Peter was on the living room floor surrounded by colored pencils, drawing quietly. Mrs. Carter was sitting on the couch, watching her soap opera. "How did it go, dear?" Marina forced a smile. "Complicated, Mrs. Carter, but it's going to be fine." A lie. She wasn't sure about anything. After Mrs. Carter left, Marina made a simple dinner, rice, beans, and fried eggs. Peter ate slowly, chewing each bite with care. "Mom, are you sad?" Marina looked at him, those big, innocent eyes filled with concern. "No, sweetheart, just tired." "That's not true." Peter tilted his head. "When you wrinkle your forehead, it means you're sad." Marina sighed and pulled him into her arms. "It's okay, Peter. Mommy just needs to work really hard these next few days, but after that everything's going to get better, I promise." Peter nodded and went back to his drawing. After she put him to bed, Marina sat at the small kitchen table. She turned on the only lamp in the house, the one with a cracked shade, and spread out everything she had on Georgia O'Keeffe, college textbooks, printed articles from the internet, exhibition catalogues, photographs of authentic works. Marina spent the entire night studying every detail, the way O'Keeffe signed her paintings, always in black ink, firm stroke, slightly leaning to the right. The chemical composition of the paints she used, imported from France Lefranc and Bourgeois brand, made with mineral-based natural pigments. The texture of her brush strokes, uneven layers, with visible relief, the result of the alla prima technique she preferred. And then Marina saw something, a small footnote in a 1987 catalogue. All authentic Georgia O'Keeffe canvases from the modernist period, 1920-1930, were painted on Belgian linen by Claessens, 12 threads per square centimetre. Common forgeries use modern canvas with 18 to 20 threads. Marina straightened up. The fabric weave. She hadn't checked the fabric weave. She had to go back to the gallery. She had to examine the canvas closely with her portable microscope. She looked at the clock. 3:40 a.m. She slept for only 2 hours. Friday morning, Marina woke up with a pounding headache. Reheated coffee. Quick shower. The water was freezing because the heater had burned out. Peter woke up quietly, noticing his mother was tense. "I'm going to work again, my prince. Mrs. Carter will take care of you." "Are you going to win?" Marina froze halfway across the room. "Win what?" "The game." Peter held up yesterday's drawing, a woman surrounded by paintings with a huge sun in the corner. "You always win when there's a sun." Marina felt her chest tighten. She kissed his forehead. "I'm going to win, I promise." Marina entered through the back door, just like Michael had authorized. The gallery was empty, internal hours, no visitors yet. She went straight to the VIP room. The painting was there, lit by focused spotlights. But something was different. A new plaque beside it read, "Sold private collection of Richard Vaughan." Marina's stomach sank. He had bought it. Richard Vaughan had bought the fake painting for $550,000. And now, if Marina proved it was fake, he would lose every penny. She took a deep breath. It doesn't matter. The truth is the truth. Marina put on her gloves, picked up her portable microscope, an old piece of equipment she'd bought second-hand on an auction site, and approached the canvas. With extreme care, she examined the fabric weave along the edges. She counted the threads. Once, twice, 3 times to be sure. 19 threads per centimetre. Modern canvas, not Claessen's Belgian linen. Marina took photos with her phone, wrote everything down in her old notebook, and then she heard the door open. "Still here, Miss Alcott?" Michael's voice. Marina turned around. He was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, looking irritated. "I'm finishing the analysis." "The analysis is cancelled." Michael walked into the room. "The piece has been sold. Mr. Vaughan hired another expert. Someone more qualified. Your work here is done." Marina stood up. "Michael, the painting is fake. I can prove it." "Prove it?" Michael let out a dry laugh. "Miss Alcott, do you understand how serious that accusation is? You're accusing this gallery of selling a forgery. That could destroy us." "Then stop selling forgeries." Michael's face turned red. "Get out, now." "Not before I—" "Out!" Michael pointed to the door. "Or I'll call security." Marina grabbed her bag, her microscope and her notebook, and walked out. But before leaving, she turned to him. "Saturday night at the auction, I'll be there, and I'll tell everyone the truth." Michael went pale. "You weren't invited." "Oh, yes, I was. By Dr. Henry Whitmore." Marina smiled for the first time in days. "See you Saturday, Michael." Marina was at the bus stop when a black car pulled up in front of her, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, tinted windows. The back door opened. "Get in." Richard Vaughan's voice. Marina took a step back. "No, thank you." "It's not an invitation. It's a necessary conversation. Get in." Marina hesitated, but curiosity got the better of her. She stepped inside. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Richard sat beside her, dark grey suit, watch gleaming on his wrist. The driver closed the door and waited outside. "I'll be direct," Richard said, pulling a checkbook from his pocket. "You need money. I have money. Let's settle this like civilized people." Marina folded her arms. "I'm not interested." "You haven't heard my offer yet." Richard opened the checkbook. "I'm willing to pay for your son's surgery, the full amount, $47,000. Marina felt her heart stop. $47,000. The exact cost of the surgery. How did he know? "In exchange for what?" "In exchange for you signing a report saying the painting is authentic," Richard said, pulling out a Mont Blanc pen. "Simple as that. You sign it. I pay. Your son gets his surgery on Monday, just like planned." Marina looked at the checkbook, at the pen in his hand, then at his face. That arrogant, confident face, the face of a man who had probably never heard the word no in his life. "You're offering me a bribe." "I'm offering you a solution." Richard wrote the amount on the check. $47,000 right now. Your son gets the surgery. You survive another month, another 6 months, another year, or... He slowly tore the check apart, piece by piece. "You walk out of here with your so-called integrity and $0, nothing, while your son stays deaf in one ear." Tears burned in Marina's eyes. She thought of Peter, his smile, the way he held her hand when he was scared. And then she imagined looking in the mirror and seeing a woman who had sold her own soul. "You know what I think?" Marina wiped her tears. "I think you're so afraid of losing money that you're willing to ruin someone else's life. And that's not power. That's cowardice." Richard narrowed his eyes. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," Marina said, opening the car door. "But at least I'll regret it honestly." She got out and slammed the door. Richard watched through the window as she walked away, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't know what to do. Marina got home at 2 in the afternoon. She sat on the floor, her back against the wall, and finally let despair take over. She had just refused $47,000, refused her son's surgery. Why? Out of pride? Out of integrity? What was worth more, the truth or Peter's health? Marina buried her face in her hands and cried. She cried until there were no more tears left, until her throat hurt, until her chest felt hollow. Then the phone rang. It was Dr. Reynolds, the speech therapist. Marina answered, her voice hoarse. "Hi, doctor." "Marina, I'm calling about the deadline. We need the deposit by tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Otherwise, we lose the hospital slot." Marina closed her eyes. I won't make it." There was a pause. "Are you sure? This slot was extremely hard to get. The next one could take 6 months, maybe longer." 6 months. Half a year with Peter hearing only half the world. Half a year watching him drift further away. I'll find a way, I promise. But it was a lie. Marina had no idea how she was going to find a way. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the evidence. Photographs of the fabric weave, chemical analyses of the paint, comparisons with authentic works. Everything proved the painting was fake. But what mattered more? The truth or her son? Marina looked toward the bedroom where Peter was sleeping, listened to his calm breathing, and made a decision. She would go to the auction, she would expose the truth, and afterward, somehow, she would find another way to pay for the surgery, even if it took years, even if she had to work 3 jobs. But she wouldn't lie, she wouldn't sell her soul. Because if she did that, what kind of example would she be for Peter? Marina picked up her phone and sent a message to Dr. Whitmore. "I'll be at the auction tomorrow at 8 p.m., with all the evidence." The reply came 3 minutes later. "Courage is rare, Miss Alcott. I'll see you there." Marina leaned her head on the table and finally fell asleep. Only 2 hours. But they were the most peaceful 2 hours of the entire week, because for the first time she was sure she was doing the right thing. Saturday morning came grey. Heavy clouds hung over New York, promising rain. Marina woke up at 6, her body aching from tension. Peter was still asleep, hugging his pillow. She got up slowly, made coffee, the last from the bag, and sat down to review her notes for the 10th time. Every piece of evidence was documented, every photo, every analysis, every comparison. Marina built a simple presentation on her phone. Basic slides, nothing professional, but it worked. If Dr. Whitmore asked, she was ready. At 9 a.m., the phone rang again. Dr. Reynolds. Marina took a deep breath and answered. "Hi, doctor." "Marina, the hospital spot. Did you get the money?" Silence. Marina looked at Peter, who had just woken up and was drawing on the floor. "I didn't. I'm sorry." There was a long pause on the other end. "Marina, I understand it's hard. But this spot, I know, and I'll get the money. I just need more time." "How much time?" "I don't know," Marina said, her voice trembling, "but I will. I promise." Another pause. "All right. I'll try to reschedule. But I can't promise anything." "Thank you, Dr. Reynolds, truly." Marina hung up and stared at the phone. She had just turned down $47,000, lost the surgery spot, and now she was heading to an auction to confront one of the most powerful men in New York City. Either she was incredibly brave or completely insane. 5 p.m. Marina stood in front of her open closet. 3 options, only 3. The worn black blazer, the same one Richard had mocked. A navy blue dress from 2018, bought second-hand, a little too tight at the waist. A white blouse from college, yellowed under the arms but still wearable. Marina picked the dress, tried it on. Too tight, uncomfortable. She wouldn't be able to breathe. She grabbed the white blouse. The stains were too visible. That left the blazer, the same one Richard Vaughan had looked at with disgust. Marina ran her hand over the frayed sleeves, over the paint stains that wouldn't come out. And then she smiled. To hell with it. I'll go as I am. She put on the blazer, the patched jeans and her worn-out sneakers, the same pair, because she didn't have another. Marina looked at herself in the cracked bathroom mirror, hair tied in a simple bun, no makeup. She didn't own any, dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze was steady. "You can do this for the truth, for Peter." Mrs. Carter arrived at 6 to stay with Peter. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so nervous." She held Marina's hands. "But you're going to do great, I know it." Marina forced a smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter." Peter was sitting on the floor, drawing again. Marina knelt beside him. "Peter, Mommy's leaving now. I'll be gone for a little while." He looked up from his drawing. "Are you going to win?" Marina took his hand. "I'm going to try, sweetheart. I'm going to try really hard." Peter handed her the drawing he had made, the woman surrounded by paintings with a big sun in the corner. "Take it. You always win when there's a sun." Marina felt tears sting her eyes. She kissed his forehead and slipped the drawing into her bag. "Thank you, my prince." She left the apartment at 7 o'clock. The auction started at 8. Marina took the same bus as always and stared out the window while the city passed by. Grey buildings, traffic at a standstill, tired people heading home from work. And Marina thought, how many of these people have had to choose between truth and survival? Probably many, and probably most of them chose survival. But Marina wasn't most people. She got off the bus 3 blocks before the gallery. The rain had started, a light drizzle, just enough to be annoying. She didn't have an umbrella. By the time she reached the entrance of the avant-garde gallery, her hair was wet, dripping. Her blazer was soaked through, her sneakers squished with every step. At the entrance stood 2 security guards in black suits, and a young woman with a tablet, checking the guest list. Marina approached. "Good evening, Marina Alcott." The woman looked at the tablet, frowning. "I don't see your name here." "I was invited by Dr. Henry Whitmore." The woman looked Marina up and down, the soaked blazer, the worn-out sneakers. "I'll need to confirm." She grabbed a radio and spoke softly into it. 2 minutes later, a man appeared. White hair, thin-rimmed glasses, impeccable navy blue suit. Dr. Henry Whitmore. "Miss Alcott." He extended his hand with a warm smile. "I'm glad you came." Marina shook his hand, relieved. "Thank you for the invitation, Doctor." "The doors are open," he said with a faint smile. "But the show, that's up to you." They walked in together. The hall was packed. 300 people, maybe more. Men in tuxedos, women in long evening gowns, diamonds glittering brighter than the chandeliers. Waiters moved elegantly between them with trays of Laurent Perrier champagne, and at the center of the room on a raised platform stood the main attraction, the American sunflower, lit by spotlights, protected by anti-reflective glass. A golden plaque beneath it read, "Final lot, Georgia O'Keeffe, the American Sunflower, 1928, starting bid, $550,000. Marina's stomach twisted. $500,000 for a fake. Dr. Whitmore led her to a chair in the 3rd row. "Stay here. When the time comes, I'll call you." Marina nodded and sat down. Her hands were shaking. She tucked them under her legs to hide it. Then she heard a familiar voice. "I can't believe you had the nerve to show up." Marina turned her head. Richard Vaughn. He was 3 seats away in the front row, perfect black tuxedo, bow tie, hair perfectly styled, and next to him, the same blonde woman as before, and his son, Theo, gripping his father's hand tightly, eyes on the floor. Richard stood and walked toward her. "Do you really think anyone here will take you seriously?" He glanced at her wet blazer. "Look at you. You look like you crawled out of a sewer." Marina took a deep breath. "I didn't come here to impress anyone. I came to tell the truth." Richard leaned down until he was eye level with her. "You know what's going to happen. You're going to humiliate yourself in front of all these people, and then you'll go back to your miserable little life, alone, broke, with a deaf son." Marina felt her eyes burn with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "At least I'll sleep well." Richard laughed. "Pride doesn't pay the bills, sweetheart." He went back to his seat. Marina stared at her hands, still trembling. At exactly 8 o'clock the lights dimmed, a spotlight illuminated the stage, and the auctioneer stepped up, a man in his 60s, commanding voice, professional smile. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the avant-garde charity auction, where art meets generosity." Polite applause. "Tonight all proceeds will go to the Art for All Foundation, bringing culture to underprivileged communities, and to close the night in grand style." He paused dramatically. "Here we have a truly extraordinary piece, a work that needs no introduction." The spotlight moved to the painting, The American Sunflower by Georgia O'Keeffe, 1928, one of the most iconic works of American modernism. Starting bid, $550,000. Whispers of admiration rippled through the room. "Who will start?" Richard immediately raised his bidding paddle. $550,000. We have $550,000 from the gentleman in the front. Do I hear 570? Silence. No one raised their paddle. The auctioneer waited. 550 once. That's when Marina stood up. Wait. 300 heads turned toward her. The auctioneer frowned. Excuse me, ma'am, but the bidding has already begun. I'm not here to bid. Her voice trembled, but it was steady. I'm here to say that this painting is fake. The room erupted in murmurs. Richard turned, his face red with anger. This is ridiculous. Security! Hold on. Dr. Henry Whitmore's voice cut through the noise like a blade. He stood slowly. Let the lady speak. The auctioneer looked toward Michael, the gallery director, who stood frozen in the back, pale as a ghost. Doctor, Whitmore, with all due respect, this woman has no credentials to— She has the only credentials that matter, Whitmore interrupted. Knowledge, and I want to hear what she has to say. Marina took a deep breath. She walked toward the stage, climbed the 3 steps, her legs shaking so badly she almost stumbled. She stood before 300 people, all of them watching her, judging, doubting. Marina took out her phone, connected it to the gallery's projector. Doctor. Whitmore had approved it earlier, and she began. My name is Marina Alcott. I've been an art restorer for 12 years. Her voice was hoarse but clear. And over the past 3 days, I've analyzed this piece in detail, and I can prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that it's fake. The whispers grew louder. Richard stood up. This is absurd. She's lying because I refused her blackmail attempt. Marina looked straight at him. Hey, you offered me $47,000 to sign a false report saying this painting was authentic, and I refused. That's not blackmail, that's integrity. The room went silent. Prove it, Richard said, stepping forward. Prove I'm lying. Marina took out her phone, pressed play. Richard's voice echoed through the speakers in the hall. I'm willing to pay for your son's surgery, the full $47,000, in exchange for you signing a report saying the painting is authentic. The silence was absolute. Richard went pale. The blonde woman beside him covered her mouth with her hand, and Theo, his son, tugged at his father's sleeve, confused. Dad, why? Richard didn't answer. Marina stopped the recording. Now, about the painting. She projected the first image onto the big screen, a microscopic photo of the canvas weave. Georgia O'Keeffe painted exclusively on Clausen's Belgian linen with a weave of 12 threads per centimetre. This one has 19. It's modern canvas manufactured after the 1970s. Second image, chemical analysis of the paint. The cobalt blue pigment is wrong. O'Keeffe used natural ultramarine made from ground lapis lazuli imported from France. This one is synthetic blue made with modern compounds. Third image, the signature. The signature was done with modern ink, not oil paint, and the pressure is inconsistent, typical of a recent forgery made with a technical pen, not a brush. Marina looked toward Dr. Whitmore. He was standing analyzing the images carefully. And finally, Marina continued, projecting a close-up of the bottom right corner of the painting, there's a watermark on the canvas, invisible to the naked eye but visible under UV light. The mark is from the French manufacturer Lefranc, but this particular model was introduced only in 1987. She turned off the projector. This painting is not from 1928. It's a recent forgery, most likely from the 1980s. Its real value is maybe $20,000, not $500,000. The entire hall was silent. Dr. Whitmore stepped onto the stage. He took a magnifying glass from his pocket and approached the painting. He examined it in silence. 10 seconds, 20, 30, a full minute. Marina could barely breathe. Finally, Dr. Whitmore turned around. Miss Alcott is correct, he said, his voice firm and clear. This piece is a forgery. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, whispers, cameras flashing. Richard stumbled backward, dazed. His face was completely white. His hands trembled. No, that can't be. I paid $550,000. Michael, the gallery director, tried to slip quietly toward the back exit, but 2 security guards blocked the door. Dr. Whitmore turned to him. Mr. Fisher, I suggest you stay. The police will want to have a word with you. Michael froze. Verena stepped down from the stage, her legs shaking. She could hardly believe what she had just done. She had exposed a $500,000 fraud in front of 300 people, including the most powerful man she knew, and then something happened. Something no one expected. Theo, Richard's son, let go of his father's hand. The 6-year-old boy who never spoke to strangers, who avoided eye contact, who spent most of his time staring at the floor. He started walking. Slowly, one step at a time, across the crowded room, past people in tuxedos and glittering gowns, until he stopped in front of Marina. The entire room watched in silence. Theo looked up at her, for the first time in months, according to what Richard would later say. He looked straight into Marina's eyes. "You—" His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You're the lady from the paintings." Marina blinked, confused. "What?" Theo pointed at her with his small finger. "At the museum. I saw you. You fixed the dog painting." Marina's heart stopped. The dog painting, she remembered. 3 months earlier, a restoration job at the Museum of Modern Art, a small piece by an American artist, Boy with Dog. The painting had been damaged, the dog almost invisible. Marina had spent 2 weeks restoring it, bringing the colors back to life. And she remembered seeing a little boy, always alone, always staring at that one painting. But she never imagined, You remember me?" Theo nodded. "You made it happy again. The dog was sad. You fixed it." Tears filled Marina's eyes. She knelt down face to face with him. "You liked it?" Theo smiled, a small, shy but genuine smile. "I liked it a lot. I went there every day, just to see it." And then he did something that shocked everyone in the room. He hugged her, a tight, desperate hug, as if she were the only safe person in the world. Marina hugged him back, crying. "Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much." When Theo let go, he looked at her again. "You fixed the sad paintings, right? My dad's sad. Can you fix him too?" Marina looked over Theo's shoulder. Richard was on his knees on the marble floor, crying. Not the quiet, restrained kind, but the kind that comes from someone who has just realized something devastating. The blonde woman beside him had already left, ashamed. He was alone, completely alone. Marina stood up slowly, walked toward him. The entire room watched in silence. She stopped in front of him. He lifted his head, his eyes red and swollen. My son never talks to strangers, never. The doctors said, they said he might never form deep emotional connections." His voice broke. "And he spoke to you. He hugged you. He never, not even with me." Marina knelt beside him. "Do you know why? Because he doesn't see me as a stranger. He sees me as someone who takes care of what he loves." Richard covered his face with his hands. "I'm a monster. I offered you money. I humiliated you. I treated you like trash, when all you were doing was the right thing." "You're not a monster," Marina said softly. "You're a man who forgot what truly matters." Richard looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "How do I fix this? How do I fix what I've done?" Marina stood up. She reached out her hand. "Get up and start over." Richard looked at her hand, hesitated, then took it. Marina helped him stand. The entire room was silent. Dr. Henry Whitmore approached. "Miss Alcott, I'd like to make this official. I want you as the lead restoration consultant for the Museum of Modern Art. Full salary, full benefits, starting Monday." Marina blinked. "Seriously?" "Completely serious. People like you, honest, skilled, brave, actually are rare. And this museum needs people like that." Marina felt her knees weaken. I accept. Thank you so much." Dr. Whitmore smiled and shook her hand. Then he turned to Richard. "Mr. Vaughan, you were the victim of a fraud. The gallery will be investigated and you're entitled to a full refund." Richard nodded, still dazed. "Thank you." He looked at Marina. I need to apologize for what I said, for what I did. You saved my son from growing up with a terrible father, and I I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better." Marina smiled softly. "Then start now. Go hug your son." Richard looked toward Theo, who stood a few feet away, watching. He walked toward the boy slowly, and for the first time in months he knelt down and opened his arms. Theo ran to him and threw himself into his father's embrace, father and son, holding each other in the middle of the auction hall. And for the first time, Richard was truly present. Midnight. The room was nearly empty now. Only a few security guards, the cleaning staff, and Marina sitting on a chair in the back, exhausted, but at peace. Dr. Whitmore walked over, holding 2 glasses of water. He handed one to her. "You were incredible tonight." Marina accepted the glass, smiling wearily. "I just did what was right. And that's exactly what makes you incredible." Dr. Whitmore sat beside her. Most people would have taken the money, signed the fake report, and no one would ever know. Marina took a sip of water. "I would know, and my son would know eventually. I don't want him to grow up thinking everything has a price." Dr. Whitmore nodded. "Your position at the museum starts Monday. Salary $2,500 a month, full health coverage, meal stipend, and—" He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This is an advance. 3 months' pay." Marina took the envelope, confused, opened it. $7,500. Her eyes widened. "Dr. Whitmore, I can't accept this." "You can. You've earned it. And—" He pointed toward the doorway. "Someone wants to speak with you." Marina turned her head. Richard Vaughan was standing at the entrance, hands in his pockets, looking nervous. Dr. Whitmore stood up. "I'll leave you two to talk." He walked away. Richard approached slowly. He sat down in the chair next to hers, keeping a respectful distance. "Hi." "Hi." Awkward silence. Finally, Richard spoke. "I spent the last 2 hours in my car thinking, and I realized something. I've spent my whole life measuring people by what they have, what they make, what they're worth. And I never stopped to see who they really are." He looked at Marina. "You have more integrity in your little finger than I have in my entire body, and I treated you like garbage because I'm an arrogant fool who thinks money solves everything." Marina didn't say anything. She just listened. "My son spoke to you. He hugged you. You know the last time he really hugged me, 6 months ago, because I'm never around, always on my phone, always in meetings, always busy." His voice broke. "And today he hugged you, a stranger, because you cared about something he loved." Richard wiped his eyes. "I want to be better. I don't know how, but I want to try." Marina took a deep breath. "Do you really mean that?" "I do." "Then start by stopping measuring people by their bank accounts. Start seeing them for their hearts." Richard nodded slowly. "I'll try." He pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to her. "This is my personal number. If you or your son ever need anything at all, may call me, please." Marina took the card. "Read the name. Richard Vaughan, CEO, Vaughan Holdings. Personal number below." "Thank you, but I'll be fine." "I know." Richard smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "You're stronger than anyone I've ever met." He stood up. "Good night, Marina, and thank you for not giving up, not even on me." Marina smiled. "Good night, Richard." He walked out, and Marina stayed alone in the empty hall, holding the envelope with $7,500. She picked up her phone and called Dr. Reynolds. "Doctor, it's Marina." "Marina, how are you?" "I got the money. When can we schedule Peter's surgery?" There was a brief pause of surprise. "Really? That's wonderful. Let me check." Typing sounds. "We can schedule it for next week, Wednesday." Marina smiled as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Perfect. Thank you so much, Doctor." "You're welcome. See you next week." Marina hung up, leaned her head back against the chair, and for the first time in months she felt hope. She left the gallery at 1 in the morning. The rain had stopped. The air was cool and clean. She walked toward the bus stop, but before reaching it she paused, looked up at the sky. The clouds had parted, revealing a few scattered stars. She thought about everything that had happened. How close she had come to selling her soul for money. How an arrogant man had learned a lesson, and how an autistic child had changed everything. Then she remembered the words she'd been meaning to tell herself from the very beginning. Marina looked at the envelope in her bag, at Richard's card, and whispered, "Wealth without empathy is just a bank account too big for a heart too small." She slipped the envelope back into her bag and walked home. 9 months later, EXT. Colors and Senses Institute, Brooklyn, Saturday morning. The building was modest, 2 stories, its facade painted in light yellow, covered with colorful drawings made by children. A wooden sign by the entrance read, "Colors and Senses Institute, Art Therapy for Neurodivergent Children, Free Admission." Marina stood at the entrance greeting the children. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, white t-shirt, blue jeans. But this time, no patches. New sneakers, white, spotless. And a genuine smile on her face. "Good morning, Sophie. Good morning, David." The kids walked in excitedly, carrying backpacks and sketchbooks. Inside the institute, the rooms were full of light, walls painted by the children themselves, tables covered in brushes, paints and canvases. And in every corner artwork, some professional, others made by the kids. Peter was in one of the rooms, teaching a 5-year-old girl how to mix colors. "Look, if you mix blue with yellow, it turns green. Try it." The girl focused, mixed the paint, and then shouted with joy, "I did it." Peter smiled, that famous 3-second smile, bright and proud. He had the surgery 8 months earlier. Now he could hear perfectly with both ears. He was more talkative, more confident, more alive. Marina watched from the doorway, her eyes shining. "Mom," Peter waved. "Come look." She walked in and knelt beside him. "It's beautiful, my prince." Clara did it all by herself. Marina smiled at the little girl. "You're an artist, Clara." The girl smiled shyly and went back to painting. Marina was leaving the room when she heard the receptionist's voice. "Marina, there's someone at the front asking for you." Marina walked downstairs and stopped on the last step. Richard Vaughan was standing at the door. No suit, just simple jeans, a white t-shirt and Nike sneakers. His hair was messy, no gel, and beside him stood Theo, holding his father's hand, smiling. Marina walked down slowly, surprised. "Richard?" He smiled, embarrassed. "Hi, sorry for showing up unannounced. I heard about the institute and I thought maybe Theo would like to be part of it." Marina looked at Theo. The boy was different, lighter, eyes bright. "Hi, Theo. Do you remember me?" He nodded eagerly. "You fix paintings," Marina laughed. "Yes, I do." She looked at Richard. "The institute is free, but it requires commitment from the kids and the parents." Richard nodded. "I know. And I want to be here. Really be here. This time." Marina studied his face. No arrogance, no superiority, just a father trying to do better. "All right," Marina smiled. "Theo, want to see the art room?" Theo let go of his father's hand and ran inside. Richard stayed at the door, hands in his pockets. "Marina, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "The institute. The anonymous donation you got last month." Marina frowned. 3 months earlier, an anonymous donation of $40,000 had been transferred to the institute's account, enough to keep it running for a full year. "Was that you?" Richard nodded. "It was. But I didn't want you to know. Because I didn't do it to show off. I did it because you saved me. You showed me what really matters." Marina felt tears fill her eyes. "Richard, I don't even know what to say." "You don't need to say anything." He smiled. "Just keep doing what you do, fixing paintings and people." Marina wiped her eyes, laughing softly. "I will. I promise." Richard stepped inside the institute, and for the first time in years, he wasn't there to buy, to negotiate, or to impress. He was there to be present, to be a father. Later that afternoon, Marina was in the main room helping the kids clean their brushes. Peter came running, holding a new drawing. "Mom, look." It was a picture of Marina, surrounded by children, surrounded by paintings, and in the corner, a huge glowing sun. "You won, Mom," Peter smiled. "You always win when there's a sun." Marina hugged him tightly. "Yes, I did, sweetheart. I won." And as she held him, Marina looked out the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. And she thought, the truth is always worth it, even when it hurts, even when it's scary, because in the end, the truth is what sets us free. Marina closed her eyes and gave thanks for her courage, for not giving up, and for proving that sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest one, but it's always the right one. The end today. Marina Alcott runs the Colors and Senses Institute, which provides free art therapy for more than 200 neurodivergent children every month. Peter had his surgery and is now in first grade. He still draws every day and dreams of becoming an artist. Richard Vaughan is the anonymous benefactor of the institute. He reduced his workload by 50% to spend more time with Theo. Theo has started speaking in full sentences. His first long one was, "I love painting with my dad." The avant-garde gallery was permanently closed. Michael Fisher faces charges of art fraud. And the fake American sunflower? It was donated to a university, where it's now used to teach students how to detect forgeries. The truth always wins. Sometimes it takes time, but it always wins. If this story inspired you, leave a like, share in the comments what moved you the most, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories of courage, strength, and redemption. Turn on the notification bell. Every new video is a life lesson worth hearing.